now we are going to be hearing from someone who wasn't on the flyer, but who is really leading us all and has been working non-stop to coordinate all of us, especially as cabinet ministers. And so I ask you to welcome our Prime Minister, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Thank you, Minister. Good morning, Jamaica. We are officially out of the preparation phase. We have done well in the preparation phase. But even the best laid plans would be laid to waste in a Category 5 hurricane. It's as if you have gotten a knockout blow and you're trying to reconstitute, get yourself up off the mat to say, what do I do next? And that was kind of like the impact of Hurricane Melissa. So in the initial phases of the relief phase, it was almost as if it were a scramble. What is the relief phase? The relief phase is that period of time when the authorities of the government, the civil society, private sector, and others seek to mobilize relief for those who are most impacted. What is that kind of relief we're talking about? Food, water, medicine, clothing, emergency shelter, and services, medical services, search and rescue, or in most cases now, search and recovery of bodies. Other services as well, psychological and emotional, the mental health services. And in our case, the desperate effort to restore some form of connectivity. Because the loss of connection has also been significant, which adds to the emotional and mental health crisis that we face. Persons trying to get in touch with loved ones, persons feeling disconnected who have, for almost all their lives, relied upon being able to pick up the phone and call a loved one. So in the initial few days, there was a scramble. And that scramble essentially was, my hand is up, I need help. And the system trying to respond to the loudest voices or the most frantic wave of hands. As of today, we are out of that phase. Now, a systematic response will take over in the relief effort. And you would see that the government has made certain actions to ensure that there is a systematic response. Let me say it in another way. I hear the cry of every baby that is now hungry in a community that is not yet reached. It goes to bed with me. And I have to think of it in this way. Do I try myself to jump on a helicopter with a package to reach the baby that is crying? Or do I try to develop a system to get more helicopters in, to get more packages put together, to get more supplies in, to get more support to be able to reach those babies that are crying? While at the same time saying to Keith and Darrell and Minister Tufton, get out there in the scramble. And so that is what you have been seeing. People individually going out there trying to relieve the human suffering. But that is not a sustainable response. The sustainable response is what you would see the government doing now. One, we have to streamline ODPEM, both as the Office of Disaster Preparedness, which that function was done, that phase is over, and now we are in the phase of the emergency management, which is the relief. Now, let's just be clear. The government can't stand up ODPEM with its own parallel structure of having all the people that would be necessary to pack the relief items, to load the trucks, to move the trucks to where they have to be stored, to clear the roads, all those little minor functions that make the big service works, and keep them and pay them throughout the year for every year, even when there is no disaster. Where that capability exists is in the JDF. It is a multifunctional capability. And so we have to, and at this point, I do commend the JDF and of course the JCF as well. The JDF is the repository of the logistics and engineering capabilities of the government. And in hindsight, as I reflect on how we have executed policy, not many Jamaicans would know this, but in the last 10 years of my administration, we have invested heavily in the JDF. In fact, we have doubled the size of the JDF, both in terms of men and women, material, equipment, and technology. We made an investment a few years ago in expanding our fleet of helicopters, expanding our offshore patrol vessels, expanding our radars, expanding our communications, increasing the number of bushmasters, and expanding the number of units that are in the JDF. Today, it is paying off. The logistical capability of the JDF is certainly best in class in the region. And that is what is giving us now the horsepower to be able to deal with a Category 5 level disaster. So the JDF gives the legs and arms to the management functions of the emergency. So it makes sense that there is seamless coordination between the JDF and ODPEM. And therefore, you would recognize the movement of ODPEM to OPM, where the JDF is already under the portfolio of the Office of the Prime Minister. The administration of the JDF as well, which was formerly under National Security, will also move to the Office of the Prime Minister. And we have appointed someone to now head the JDF, the ODPEM, seconded from the JDF. So we expect that there will be seamless operations. Why is this so? In the relief phase, there may be a sense that we will do this for a few weeks. I want to just bring everybody's mind to the reality that this will be a few months operation. And that the country needs to understand this. We have relief entities here. Some of them are capable of carrying out long-term relief. But most of them are not capable to carry out long-term relief and will take up stumps and leave the theater of operations after a few weeks. So the government has to have that base capability to be able to sustain the relief effort for a long period of time. And that is what I have been working on to ensure that your government has that staying capability to bring relief to 6 parishes and other divisions and constituencies in other parishes that are impacted. We don't have the exact number of persons who are impacted, but we can estimate that it would be somewhere in the region of about 600,000 persons. Now think of it. We have never had a sustained operational capability to bring constant relief effort to 600,000 persons and what that requires. So the planning that has to go into that for the logistics and management takes some time. In our case, only a few days before we can stand it up so that we can reach every crying baby who is hungry. So Commander Gale has been tasked. The CDS already knows what her task is. They will be working together seamlessly under the administrative leadership of the Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, former Chief of Defense Staff, Rocky Mead. That, however, needs to be augmented by best-in-class international support, and you can't get better than the United Nations. Last week, Sunday, I had a call with the UN Secretary General. The UN Secretary General is a friend of Jamaica. He has visited me a few times. We're always working closer together on climate change, on financing for development, and he does have a special place in his heart for Jamaica. And I said to him, what we needed was the best-in-class logistics capabilities. And within a few days, in fact, yesterday I had a meeting with the Deputy Secretary General in charge of these kinds of operations from UN Ops, and they are mobilizing a full team that will come and support the logistics and management efforts of ODPEM. So yes, we have capabilities, but as I have said, no matter what capability you thought you had, when you are hit by a Category 5 storm, right, you must get even greater and better capabilities. And so UN Ops is here. I know they have had several meetings with private sector, I believe, civil society, and they will be embedded in ODPEM. And the idea is, after this experience, the technical know-how and capabilities will be transferred to ODPEM. So we are expecting that after this, ODPEM will be even stronger in terms of its ability to manage large-scale disasters. At that point, I would segue into saying that international support for Jamaica's relief and recovery effort is significant. I don't want to call everybody's name now. I leave the Minister of Foreign Affairs to give a comprehensive review of all the countries that have reached out to us. And I've had direct conversations with several world leaders about how they can help. So the relief effort is obviously being supported, but the conversations have moved past the relief stage now, where we're talking about recovery, and that's where I am engaging several world leaders as to how they can play a role in the recovery from the disaster. You would have heard me say in the presentation to Parliament that the damage could be anywhere from 6 to 7 billion US dollars. That is a conservative estimate. I have seen one economist saying something much more. I don't want to be alarmist. But we are going through the process of trying to assess the damage. But it is one thing to lose the physical assets of production, which, by the way, if you were to compare the disaster of COVID to this disaster, we didn't lose any productive asset. In this one, we have lost productive assets. We have lost farms. We have lost businesses. We have lost schools. And we have to go and rebuild them. You have to put on top of that what it is going to cost to sustain the relief phase. What it's going to cost us for debris management. Major part of the operations. What it is going to cost us to sustain the food packages. There's a notion that we're getting a lot of aid and that will carry you through. That will carry you for a couple of weeks, if so many. We are going to have to put the budgetary allocation to carry the relief effort, and that is going to be significant. Then there is the cleanup operation, which is a quite separate operation from debris management. Because once you move away the debris, that is the initial debris from the storm, then now you have to go and figure out to clear roads, to move all the debris of houses that have been blown down, and everybody will soon start putting their old beds and couches and old fridge and everything you're going to see start to pile up. So which is why we have indicated that we will have a national cleanup week. It might very well stretch into months because the level of debris is significant. And how that is going to be disposed of and the cost of that, that is something we will have to address. And then we have to figure out now the parallel systems to get people back into school, to get hospitals up and running, to get businesses running. All of those come with a cost that we will have to foot. So in addition to losing your productive capacity, you now have to take on expenditure that you did not budget for. So the $6 to $7 or $8 billion, that's just what we have lost. What we have to spend additionally, we are in that process now of totaling it up to see what it comes. Then the recovery phase, all of that. So I want Jamaicans to understand the magnitude of the problem. Why am I saying this? How you feel will largely guide how you act. And there are a lot of people out there who are deliberately creating misinformation. And my job is to give you the correct information. If you choose not to listen to it, that's your business. But at least the correct information must be out there. I've seen someone say, Prime Minister don't like criticism. Nonsense. Not every opinion makes sense. I am not one who fears criticism, but there are people who fear me when I respond to them. Be assured that I will respond to any nonsense that is put out, not to be distracted, the critical ones. Because managing information is also an important part of the disaster management. If you allow people to cast your nation into despair and grief, to smother hope, to ignore the heroic efforts that people are making, and to just focus on the negative, then we'll have a negative outlook in a time when we need people to be positive in their outlook about our recovery. So I ask all Jamaicans of good mind and goodwill to stand up to those who are seeking to become popular on negativity. Outside of that, there has to be a critical focus on the re-establishment of normalcy. Now, even though we have broken up the emergency management into phases, it doesn't mean that everything happens sequentially, that you have to come out of the planning phase before you enter the relief phase, before you go into recovery. And no, what we're trying to do is do everything almost simultaneously. So even though we are in the relief phase, we are already planning the recovery phase. And a part of that is to restore normalcy. We want normalcy in electricity, normalcy in telecommunications, get the roads back up and running. That's, one indication of normalcy. But an important part of normalcy is to get commerce up and running. Now, as I toured through Jamaica, and I intend to go and visit some more of the areas that are hit, but I had to break that to make sure that the organization and strategy and policy is effective. What is clear is that local commerce has been badly hit. The local shops are closed. The local pharmacies are closed. Markets are closed. We need to get those stood up. The private sector has a role to play in that, and I see where they have started. Getting the gas stations open, ensuring that the large distributors are open, the large supermarkets and wholesales are open, especially in the urban areas. I like that. But I also want the small shop in Adelphi or in Spring Mount or wherever else, that those shops reopen. Now, they can't reopen for one main reason. They don't have electricity. That's one. And the second is that supplies can't get to them. The distributive trade, which, by the way, is an incredible logistics operation. They supply thousands of shops every day with trucks going all over Jamaica. That has been hit. And they can't call to place orders, and some of them can't access cash. So I've asked the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce to develop a plan to support the small shops in communities right across Jamaica to get them up and running. One of the first things that we have done is we have identified some generators, and we're going to make those generators available we're going to start with 50 in the most impacted and remote communities. We will loan them the generators. But of course, there will be some requirements for compliance issues and to ensure that they are established operations that we can enter into cooperation with. So, of course, we would have to verify that they are a legitimate operation. So we would ask the JPs, the police, and other established persons in the area to vouch for their credibility. And we're going to ask the Jamaica Business Development Corporation to lead that, along with the DBJ. We're going to also ask them if they would be willing to partner with the government to give us storage capacity. Some of them may have a strong room. They may have a room or two where we can store things. That would multiply the number of areas that we have from which we can stage operations. Because right now, CDS tells me that they have 22 staging areas that they have established right across Jamaica, which will be a hub and spoke operation. So they will move from big warehouses to these small hubs, and then from these small hubs to smaller areas of distribution. That might not be enough. Eventually, we will have to move from this operation of us moving items. So we move from main warehouse to these spoke and hub operations, and then we distribute. The physical distribution of the relief is an expensive operation, and it poses some risk to us as well. I've seen videos circulating where I've seen a Jamaica Defence Force truck and people are there waving, and it wasn't too bad. But even in a disaster, we must maintain our dignity. Even in a disaster, we must never give the view that there is lawlessness, and even if we are hungry and there is suffering, we must maintain our dignity. And the way in which the relief operation is done must be done in a way that protects the dignity of the people. So a part of what we have tasked ODPEM, JDF, and the Ministry of Labour and Social Security is to ensure that there is this standardized process that protects the dignity of the people that we're giving aid. But as I was saying, we can't carry this on forever or for too long. At some point, we will transition to a voucher or a coupon system where instead of carrying the bag of relief items, you will get something that is equivalent to cash, and you can go to your nearest shop in your area where we will stock and supply them, and you get your items. But to do that, we have to stand up those shops. We have to provision them, give them electricity, give them internet connection. And so we're working on that plan, and in the coming weeks, you will start to see that plan come to fruition, so that for the foreseeable future of the next few months, there is an effective and robust system to deliver relief as we pivot to the recovery stage. I want to thank the members of the media who are here, who have been covering the disaster, who have been faithfully attending these press briefings, and the media who has carried the press briefing, because that's very important for the informationalization of the citizen. And so I want to thank the journalists who are here, and the media, which is privately held, and they are sacrificing their advertising time for this, and I want to thank them for doing that. So, in summary, there's no question that the initial relief phase started off a bit slowly. But you know, I did some research this morning looking at the initial relief efforts for COVID, not for COVID, COVID was quickly, but for Katrina, for other major storms in the region. And Jamaica has done well. I mean, in 5 to 6 days, what we have stood up is incredible. This is not to say that there isn't human suffering, but please don't mistake me. But if you compare to Puerto Rico, to Antigua, to Dominica, and to the United States, which has had several major, that we have done is incredible. So as of today, the communities that we have not reached yet, the persons who are sending me messages to say, hey, I haven't gotten, the system will now respond and will respond quickly to get into those communities. So at the time of my next update, I should be able to say of the how many ever number of communities affected, this is the percentage that we reach. The target now is to get at least initial welfare and humanitarian response to every single Jamaican who has not yet gotten attention. Thank you for your attention, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And I think there was just one thing I needed to give. I know when Minister Tufton was speaking, he had given an email address. Let me give you the email address to use. It's healthhurricaneresponse@moh.gov.jm. So that's healthhurricaneresponse@moh.gov.jm. Now we're going to be opening up for some questions. I should note that our ministers of state are here. They're in the room too. And I see Minister Mackenzie, Minister Morgan are trying to go around. There are a lot of people in the room. I'm just acknowledging all of you. And we have cabinet, so let's go quickly to the questions. Can we have everybody just do one question, please? All right. Mike.
Dion Jacksmiller, TVJ. The changes that were announced to ODPIM seem designed to allow ODPIM to do exactly what it was set up to do, which is lead effectively from the front. But what we've seen over the years is an organization that seems to have been weakened, no permanent head appointed for an extended period of time, and ODPIM publicly sidelined during periods of disaster. So aren't the changes, even taking into account the excellent capabilities of the JDF, haven't these changes been made necessary because the office has been so weakened?
Okay, PM is going to answer. I was going to answer too.
You know, ODPIM over many years developed a sterling reputation for disaster preparedness and emergency management, and several of the heads of ODPIM have gone on to play leading roles in the Caribbean. There is no denying that over time, that capability and prominence was not as it was in previous times. There are several factors that contribute to that. One of them would be the level at which the executive leadership was remunerated. In other words, you know, for a job such as what is the task of ODPIM, the salaries did not keep pace. Because just from a competitive point of view, if you want the best people, you have to pay well. And the best people are being competed for with other entities all over the place. So Jamaicans who have the capabilities are being pulled all over. And so even now as we speak, ODPIM is still in this process of the compensation review. And that in a sense, is probably the main issue. We have had several disasters before, and you know, so if you were to say, how would you judge ODPIM in preparation, in standing up the preparation for disasters? I think you would say that the preparation for disasters went well. So even with not having necessarily the strongest executive leadership, we were still able to mount a credible preparation. During COVID, which was a kind of different disaster than what ODPEM would have been used to, ODPEM did not necessarily feature so much in the preparations, but they did come in and work very well in the emergency management, and not much credit has been given to ODPEM in ensuring that our BPO sector and some other business and commercial operations were able to operate. They set standards, they went in and inspected, they gave advice, they gave directions as to how businesses should be structured. That is not as forward-facing and recognized, but they did an extremely good job during that period of time. Granted, in COVID, it would have been the Ministry of Health that would have taken over most, for good reason, of the emergency management. In the other storms that we have had, the impact clearly is of no magnitude like this. The last one that we had, which was Beryl, exposed some weaknesses. And the government, therefore, took the actions of, one, doing a review. And persons were wondering, why am I doing a review? Everything you go do review. Some comments that I have seen. Yes, very important, because as your question would say, you know, does ODPEM have the capability to respond to a disaster like this? And I saw some weaknesses. I saw some gaps. I saw some spaces that need to be filled. But I am not the technical expert. So I asked someone who is an expert in this field, former Chief of Defense Staff, now Ambassador, to lead a team to review not just ODPEM, but the entire emergency response management of the government. And that report was very useful to us in what we need to do to make ODPEM the emergency management entity that can respond to a Category 5. ODPEM has never responded to a Category 5 disaster. And that's an important point to make. This is not a normal hurricane. So you can't judge the response of the government by virtue of what it has done in the past. This is a new level of disaster. And we need to empower, structure, support, provide the resources, and encourage and acknowledge the efforts of the persons who are now on the front line of Jamaica's response to the disaster. Thank you for the question.
All right, we have, I think it's coming down the line here. Oh, okay, all righty, on this side.
Thank you. Karen Madden, the Jamaica Gleaner. I do not see the Minister of National Security. Perhaps you have been briefed, or perhaps the Prime Minister. My question has to do with security in the shelters. We are getting reports that women have been sexually assaulted. I don't know if you have confirmed those reports, and if so, the steps you are taking to prevent this from happening.
All right. PM?
Thank you, Ms. Madden, for that question. No report has come to me. Yeah, we haven't received, I say Minister Mackenzie, who has some oversight of the shelters. We haven't gotten that report. I thank you for bringing it to our attention. If such a thing has actually happened, we will investigate. I'll ask you to give Minister Mackenzie the details that you have so we can investigate.
I don't know that it has, Prime Minister.
Oh, okay.
But we have received reports.
Yes, and PM.
So you would have received a report that the number of shelters are reducing daily. Those that exist, so that you have raised it, we're going to Cabinet in a few minutes. I will raise it in the Cabinet with Minister Chang, and we will ensure that there is adequate coverage for them. I just make this appeal to every Jamaican. Yes, it's a difficult time. Yes, there is disaster all around. But now is not the time to take advantage of persons weaker than yourself. Now is the time to help and support and to show that you are a real man. Not by holding up people at gunpoint and taking away the relief that they are bringing. Try helping them through the obstacles to deliver the relief. That is how you're going to get respect today. There is no respect that you're going to get from brandishing your gun. And let it be clear, the police have not let up on their operations.
Thank you. And PM, if I can just note, that issue was brought to my attention, and there was a specific shelter that was raised, and I had shared it with the Commissioner of Police for them to investigate. All right, we're on this side now.
Thank you so much. Kalisha Williams, Television Jamaica. This question is for Mr. Vaz. As co-chair of the Recovery Committee, is there a schedule for the distribution of the aid that can be published? I know the Prime Minister spoke to the systematic changes that will take place now in terms of the distribution of aid. TVJ News observed yesterday in Landilo, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Westmoreland, where people were throwing aid in bulk on the ground. Can you say what's the protocol surrounding this? What changes will be made going forward? And in regards to the 27 communities marooned, what's the plan to address that in terms of how soon will these people get aid? How soon will you access the communities? And finally, in regards to school, can I get a status report on the schools, the number of schools damaged, and what's the plan for students doing PEP, CXC? What's the plan for students in those areas who cannot go to school right now, both online or in person? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your four-part one question.
All right, the part that's related to me, I'm going to answer, and then I'm going to beg your indulgence for me to leave. I have to go and prepare for Cabinet. And just to say that at Cabinet today, we're going to be discussing the allocation of expenditures. Minister Tufton is quick off the bat. He has brought a quite hefty bill.
I have mine too.
I hear the Minister of Education under her breath saying she has a submission to make, and the Minister of Local Government. So I'm going to be scratching my head now to see how we can carve up that budget to give effect to the relief response. So you would have heard me say the dignity of the recipients of aid must be maintained. And in fact, yesterday we had an extensive discussion with ODPEM, and they will bring in the Ministry of Labour and Social Security to establish or re-establish the protocols and standards by which aid and relief should be delivered. I don't think there is anything wrong with the formation of lines, and I'm not saying that these are the protocols, I'm just giving you my general view that there is nothing wrong with the formation of lines. There is nothing wrong in saying one line for elderly, one line for pregnant and lactating mothers or mothers with children, and another line for everyone else. There is nothing wrong with saying strong able-bodied persons who are in the crowd, please come up and assist. There's nothing wrong with saying, where is the person that is the acknowledged leader of the community or a person who holds some office? Please come up and guide us as to who should get first. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that is the spirit, rather than saying these are the standards. What I'm getting at is saying every Jamaican should acknowledge this as the spirit in which the relief effort is done. Now, Commander Gale and Chief of Defense Staff Williams Gorman and Minister of Labour and Social Security, Colonel Charles, they will come together and reinforce the protocols so that when the aid is being delivered, Jamaica doesn't look like, let me not go any further. We want Jamaica to look good.
We need to.